Let's talk about reading. As I've mentioned previously, setting a strong foundation for the love of reading is important before we start to formally teach children how to read or write. A good way to do this is for adults to read to children every day. Choose books that the child is interested in. Get them to choose the books. Once they develop a love for reading, we can start teaching them important skills. We want them to start wanting to read books independently, so we can ask them to walk through books. We can do this before we read the book to a child, or we can ask them to walk through a book independently once they've heard it read before. When a child is walking through a book, it involves them looking at the front cover carefully, turning the pages, looking at the pictures, trying to figure out what is happening in the book. They might even retell a story in their own minds. They might use the pictures to create their own story. So we're trying to get them to access books independently. Once they start enjoying reading and they are eager to access books independently, we can start teaching them phonics in a more formal and structured way. So why do we teach phonics? Why don't we just teach the letter names such as A, B, C, D? Why do we teach A, B, K, D? To try and illustrate this, I'm going to show you a word. I'd like you to pause and think about what your brain is doing as you attempt to read this word. So this is a word that I've just made up. It's not a real word. What does your mind do as it attempts to read it? Does it think about the letter names, such as P, I, T, A? Or does your mind start thinking about the sounds that these letters make? I'm actually quite interested to hear your answers for this. Let me tell you what my mind does. So in my head, I start chunking. It's a long word, so I break it down into smaller words that I can read with much more ease. And as I'm doing that, my brain is actually thinking of the letter sounds. Now this is quite interesting because it helps us reflect on how we've been taught to read words. So your mind might do something completely differently. Please do let me know. Thinking about the letter names, P, I, T, A, that doesn't actually help me read this word. But when I think P, I, T, A, pitta, that helps me read the word with much more ease. So by teaching phonics, we are giving children the skills to segment and blend words. This will help them when they reach higher levels of reading and they access words that they've never seen before. So technically, a child might be able to read this word without any knowledge of phonics because they've seen this word before and they've memorized it as being cat. The problem with this is, if they see the same letters in a different context, they're not going to be able to decode the word. So we're not just teaching children what a word says, we're teaching them how to develop the skills that they need for reading. We teach children how to identify initial sounds in words, and we teach them how to read CVC words, the beginning of their learning journey when it comes to reading. I Spy is a great game you can play to help children identify initial sounds in words. As with all learning in the early years, make it relatable, make it fun. So just to give you an example, the other day I made something. I cooked some food for my son and it was hot, but he was really hungry and he was eager to eat it. So I was telling him it's hot and it wasn't working. So we went to the magnetic board and I spelled out hot, hot, hot. It's hot. This became a bit more fun for him and it helped him be patient as we were waiting for his food to cool. And then he actually said, "How do you write cool?" and I didn't have enough Oz, so I ended up writing it with a pen. But this was real. It was in context to what was happening in our lives at that time. And it was a great way to pass a few minutes for the food to actually cool down. So make it real, make it fun. These are some old slate coasters that I bought a while ago. I used them for a little while and then I found replacements. And I didn't really know what to do with these. I've recently started using them for our morning activity with a bit of chalk, just to write CVC words for my son to practice in the morning. I know a couple of you were asking about books that we can expose children to for the early stages of phonics. I've ordered these recently. I haven't actually used them with my son yet, but these will be great because they focus on CVC words and high frequency words. So high frequency words are words that you see quite often in books. I hope this helps for now. As I've mentioned earlier, to really understand phonics and to be able to teach it in the way that works for individual children, it would take a few workshops. But I did really want to share something before the start of Ramadan. So I hope this helps, inshallah.